Monday, November 19th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we begin a series about Google by talking about the world before Google.
Let's do this.
Well, we're still alive.
Yeah.
And the weekend didn't go quite as badly as it could have.
No, it could have been much worse. I was very tired yesterday, but I slept a whole lot because somehow yesterday I got to sleep
I find
at
it
like
interesting
9.
that, you see, we went to this party, which, now, if last year's or the last time a party like this happened was to be believed, we were expecting to basically have to fend off a horde of Visigoths, or in this case, possibly Ostrogoths, in the corner of the house, hoping not to be vomited upon.
Yeah, this exact party has happened once before, and we didn't go because of other reasons.
Well, because the Wii came out and we were here to get it.
Yeah, but oh wow, yeah, it was exactly a year ago. So, yeah, because the Wii is I think a year old today or something like that. Regardless, the same party happened before, and the tales were vomitacious.
They were vomitiquitous.
All right. They were vomitorium. So, and so we expected that since we're going to the party for the second time it's ever happened, that it would be a similar event. Yet it was not.
It was quite enjoyable. But I think the most telling thing was that at the end of it all, Scott did not drink and Alex did not drink. I drank quite a bit. But yet in the morning and the rest of the next day, the three of us had the same hangover.
Yeah. There wasn't too much sleeping going on there.
No, not so much. We stayed up until like 3 the first night playing apples to apples and then arguing about crap. And
yeah, I generally just got the same bad feeling you get whenever you don't get enough sleep and do too much stuff.
And then the next night, we were going to go to bed at like 3. Everything was all set. And then we stayed up another hour arguing with some guy about comics. Now, issues are kind of to suck, and collecting comics is kind of dumb if you're trying to make money off of it.
Yeah, especially if you're doing it for money. But the point is that, I had to drive home and everyone else is sleeping in the car. And then we finally got home and then we went out to eat and we came home and it was actually really early, like 9-ish. So after finishing reading the book I was reading, which didn't take very long, I actually went to sleep stupidly early and I got enough sleep to revive. And Thanksgiving, I only have to work 2 more days before I'm off again. So
yeah, and I got the Friday off, so I'm doing my annual go out to Rochester, go to Millennium kind of pilgrimage.
You'll have to, well, I don't know what we want there.
I'm going to email the Millennium guy ahead of time and see if he can get me a copy of Dune before I get there.
That's a good call.
I'll pretty much tell him I'm willing to pay up to like $150.
That's a good call.
But anyway, let's just get into the news. I kind of want to get done with the show and go to bed.
Yeah,
I'm not super tired. I just actually want to continue to be well rested.
I just want to read a bunch of manga and stuff. I'm going to get so much reading and coding stuff done with the Thanksgiving and all the business, and it's going to be good times. But for now, tech news, always slow in late November. I mean, every tech podcast is like, oh, what do we talk about?
But what about all those rumors of a 14 or 13-inch MacBook?
Those were like a couple weeks ago.
I know, and whatever happened to that?
They're rumors. Don't believe anything until you see it, people.
Oh, I know. I don't believe it, but at the same time, not that Apple cares about me, but I have to say, if that comes to be true, I'm probably going to buy one pretty quickly.
If it's true, it's probably not a bad purchase. I might have purchased one if I had needed a laptop when around now instead of around back then.
And I kind of need one now.
Now that I'm really happy with what I got.
Now that I'm once again a flush in money and anything that I can spend money on that'll make my life better is worth it.
Yep. All right. So, what kind of news you got over there?
Oh, yeah. I got to start. All right. So, I find this interesting because I saw this article on Slashdot and I read it and I had thoughts about it. Meanwhile, Scott read an article on Dig that was about something that actually happened because the article on Slashdot was basically just, wouldn't it be bad if? Is it stupid too? Should we worry about? And Scott's article was, X happened. It sucked. We should have worried.
I don't know about the reliability of either of that article, but whatever.
I didn't read it. I didn't see it. Scott told me about it. He's backing
I just
down
saw a
now.
headline and I inspected it very cursorily.
Uh-huh.
So, but it definitely did. There was an article that did say what we're about to say.
But anyway, you might be familiar with these websites like TinyURL, Italia. There's a million of these things. It's, you type in a URL.
TinyURL is the most popular one.
You type in a URL on their little site, and it'll give you back a shorter URL. Like I type www.scottmakesinappropriateurls that imply homosexuality.com.
gobbledygook, 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 gobbledygook.
And it shortens it to tinyurl.com/1794.
Uh-huh.
I hope that isn't something real. I don't even...
I'll go see. It is something. I'll go find out.
But these sorts of services are kind of a mixed bag. And even though tinyurl is kind of known and respected and trusted, at the same time, my personal opinion is that there has really never been a useful purpose for anything like this. I mean, a lot of people, and the worst thing is I see people using it, not even for the real, I guess the only legitimate thing I could see it for, which is trying to tell someone a URL over the phone or trying to tell someone a URL in a radio show or something. But I see people posting tiny URLs in forums because they don't know how to make a link. So instead of using HTML or BB code or whatever, they post a tiny URL in text in a forum.
What would be easier would be a website where you go to and you just type in the crazy URL and then it makes you an HTML link that you can copy and paste.
That is kind of sad if you need that. It's the internet.
I know.
I'll be to me, HTML or at least BB code is pretty much the language you need to understand to be...
Or wiki code.
To count at the internet. You don't count if you can't do one of those, as far as I can tell.
Well, at least not at the internet, but on the web. You can't...
No.
You cannot operate on the web if you don't at least know the basics of HTML and or BB code. It's just not going to happen. You need to know how to at least make a link, href, whatever.
But, I mean, I'll say pretty much straightforward. I feel that people who use these services use them poorly and stupidly, and I really see no legitimate reason to bother with them.
James Randi always uses it.
I know, and he shouldn't.
He shouldn't.
The worst thing in the world is when there's ever a link in a website that uses a tiny URL. Why? All you did was add a layer of possible failure.
Yeah, I mean, if tinyurl goes down, now your link doesn't work, even if the site that you were trying to link to in the first place is still up.
Also, I'll say that I just, in principle, do not click on those kinds of URLs because...
Who knows where they can go?
I don't know what's on the other side. And while I am not, I was going to say immune, but then I said not. So I am not immune to being rickrolled because I'm on to Linux and to Firefox. But nonetheless, if I see a URL and I can't tell where it goes, I'm not going to risk going to a site that might try to rickroll me.
Yeah, I mean, a very important security feature of web browsers is that you hold the mouse over the link and the URL shows up in the bottom. And you look at that URL of where the link is going to go and you say, aha, I know where this link is going. And if the link is going to like yahoo.com, you're like, yahoo.com. Yeah, I'm sure that's totally legitimate and free of evil.
Sorny, Magnetbox.
Oh, look at all these great name brands. But yeah, so the fact, if you can take a tiny URL and point that to, say, some horrible evil website of doom, and then someone hovers over it and they go, oh, tiny URL. I guess I have to click.
Granted,
evil.
Someone who trusts tinyurl probably wouldn't have figured out that yahoo.com/gobbledygook is somehow bad.
Yeah, probably.
Or the famous Microsoft.com/whole bunch of stuff that actually just redirects you to evil.com.
Yeah. tinyurl, useless. If you're using it, stop. Just learn how to make a link.
The wonderful thing is, there's this Slashdot article I'm linking to where people are all, should we worry? Is this going to break the internet? And I'm going to answer all those questions. 1, should we worry? No, it only hurts people who suck. 2, will it break the internet? No. In fact, it'll make the internet better, because if you link to it with a tiny URL, probably wasn't worth linking to. 3, and this is my favorite thing, a lot of people on Slashdot and other places discussing this effectively made this point that I see coming up a lot, all the time on the internet, and it's always made by high school kids or freshman IT CS people, where they'll say, oh, well, tiny URL blah, DNS broken blah, DNS bad blah, DNS last legs blah, something DNS obsolete.
People don't understand the DNS like the OpenDNS guy.
Yeah, DNS is just fine. And even worse is the one argument I saw that it was infuriating and I had to resist the urge to type furiously at this person was, well, maybe if we didn't use all these so-called content management systems that make indecipherable URLs. Now, I don't know. For some reason, a URL that includes the date of the post or the title of the post isn't so indecipherable to me.
I think the problem is that a lot of the content management systems, right, are built on top of, people are running these things on Apache, and it's quite difficult to, you need an htaccess file. You need to do extra work to get clean URLs on, with an Apache web server. It's
but
just,
I'll get to
how
that.
it is.
Because one, unless you're doing something clever with the URL, like Delicious or all those sites, all the Web 2.0 / something does something for you.
Mm-hmm.
People don't need to know the URLs of specific things. DNS, you only need to know the top page. If you ever want to go deeper than the top of something, why didn't you bookmark it? Maybe you're following a link. No one calls you and says, hey man, you should go to Dvorak.org/blog. They say, one, you shouldn't call someone and tell them a URL anyway.
Yep. You just email them, send them a link. If they're on the internet and they can go to the link, you can email or IM it to them, or they'll see it in a forum or something.
Yep. Podcasters infuriate me with this as well. Since a lot of podcasters will be like, they'll mention something in the show and they say, oh yeah, go to tinyurl something. Now, why not just put the link in your show notes? Because if the person listening can get to the internet to follow that tiny URL that you just told them, they can get to your website.
And if they're good, it's more likely that they're going to remember the website of the podcast they listen to often than it is they're going to remember the URL that was said in the middle of a podcast that they listen to often.
So, yeah, tiny URL is kind of dumb, and I guess it was useful for like a span of 6 or 7 months back before email and IM kind of evolved to being working as opposed to not working. But they didn't really exist back then, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's never been a use.
No, tiny URL, bad, useless, stupid. If anyone can think of actually legitimate use for it, I'd like to hear that.
I defy you to give me a legitimate use of tiny URL.
And, pretty much the only thing you're going to come up with is make up for user incompetence. Okay, so there was another story on Slashdot.
Another story on Slashdot?
When it's slow tech news, Slashdot is the only place you can go because they are the only people who have somewhat real tech news every day.
Not only that, but it updates on it just updates on this regular tick, tick, tick. It's not a precise tick, like every 1.8 hours there's a story, but especially from people like us back when Slashdot was the only real game in town, if you're bored sitting somewhere, you know how much time's gone by and you think, well, it's about time for a new Slashdot story.
Yep. Okay, so there's a story on Slashdot that says it's called the fastest processor you can't run. And basically what they're talking about is like, oh man, AMD put out this Barcelona chip and Intel is trying to push it out of the news by releasing the Intel Core 2 Extreme chip. That's crazy fast and is $1,200. But it's stupid because you can't even use the Intel Core 2 Extreme chip because it won't work in any motherboard. Wait. That's what the story on Slashdot is saying. The first thing I have to say is that the story is wrong. You can get a motherboard that can hold that chip. I'm looking at one on Newegg right now. Let's see. Asus P5E3 Deluxe. Oh, look. Front side bus. 1600 megahertz. What was this chip again? 1600 megahertz front side bus. There on the Slashdot article it says the blah blah blah. The lack of any motherboards that support a 1600 megahertz front side bus on Newegg. 1600 megahertz front side bus.
Well, was that statement made in the submission or by some editor?
In the submission.
Oh, outstanding.
Yes.
Remember how I laughed?
Yeah.
Double that.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. I got to say this because this is all right. While in this particular instance, this chip is actually runnable on a ludicrously expensive motherboard, and it's a ludicrously expensive chip that you should not buy. I'm not saying anyone should buy this. Do not do that. Unless, I guess if you win the lottery and you're a nerd, you might want to buy this. But that's about it. Anyway, people have been selling unusable computer parts at ludicrously high prices for a long time. Specifically, or most of all, is memory. I go on Newegg right now. And let's see, Patriot Memory is selling the Patriot Extreme Performance 2 times 1 gig.
Wait a minute. How many X's are in the name Extreme?
1. EX.
Oh.
It's actually spelled correctly.
Oh.
They're selling 2.
One less thing to make fun of.
They're selling 2 1 gig sticks of DDR3 1866 RAM, which is PC3 15000.
Ha! Ha ha.
It runs, get this, faster than a 1600 megahertz bus. This RAM goes faster than any motherboard can handle. Oh, and by the way, this motherboard that can handle a 1600 megahertz bus only does that with, the overclocking.
Ha!
Yeah.
Ha.
So, like it's officially supported overclocking, you know? So this motherboard can handle DDR 1800 memory, but this is DDR 1866 memory. And it costs ludicrous amounts of money, and it's completely useless. I don't understand who buys these sticks of RAM that are faster than any motherboard can handle. It's like on the same website, on newegg.com, they are selling a stick of RAM that is faster than any motherboard on newegg.com can use. I don't understand it. It's just crazy, stupid, nerdy people who they just like to have, you know, the best computer because it means they have a bigger penis or something. I don't know.
I've always bought kind of, you know, there's the curve of diminishing returns or, you know, dollars per unit awesome. And, you know, it comes up like a hump and then it goes back down in terms of how worth it actually is. And right before it peaks is right where you want to be.
Yeah. I don't know. What are the people thinking who are buying the stuff that's ludicrously expensive and marginally faster?
You know what they're thinking?
Not faster.
You know
at
what they're
all?
thinking? They're thinking, well, with this computer, if I turn off half the settings, I might be able to play Crysis.
Lol.
Things of the day. So, last week I kind of said that I wanted to, you know, only do awesome stuff that isn't already on the top of Dig and already on the top of all those sites. And that's kind of hard to do, because even if something isn't on those sites, it will be long before I get to talk about it tonight.
Not only that, but think about how much time it would take you to dig, the pun not intended, through all the, you know, web video sites and stuff to find a thing of the day.
Actually, my secret, when I really need to find an obscure thing of the day, has been pretty much to go to the hot sites of yesteryear that for some reason still exist. And they post stuff that's so old or so out there that no one knows about it, and no one who reads Dig goes to those sites anymore. I mean, if you ever really want to find something obscure, just go around through Meme Pool. Go through the Meme Pool archives.
Yeah, I mean, before Dig, back in the olden day, there were other sites that would collect links to cool stuff.
Meme Pool and BB Spot mostly.
Yeah, sites like that. So if you're looking for things of the day that, you know, are not elsewhere, that's the business.
But I'm going to try a different tack now with my things of the day. Instead of trying to find things you haven't seen no matter what and then telling you to watch them, I feel like I'll just talk about the best thing I've seen, which you probably have seen if you go to Dig, I don't know, every couple of weeks, because it doesn't update so frequently anymore.
Well, the videos don't anyway.
The only part I care about now.
Yep.
But I'll go back to whole commentary where I assume you've already seen it. Now you can hear my thoughts on it. And what better to start with than one of my new favorite music videos, Knights of Sidonia.
All right.
So, Knights of Sidonia is a song in Guitar Hero 3, and I really like the song.
Yeah, I was playing through all the songs in Guitar Hero 3, and I knew most of them because they're Legends of Rock, but this is one that I did not know and liked a great deal, which is what I was looking for. Sadly, Guitar Hero 2 had a lot more of those than 3 does.
As Skojo and Laura proved to us by showing it to us at their party, the music video to this, now this isn't some like fan-made music video. This is the music video. Let's see. Kung Fu, Western, Unicorn, Laser Guns.
Robots.
It's up my alley. The only thing I can say, though, the only bad thing, well, I guess it's good in a way, I found out who stole my mustache.
Oh.
I mean, his isn't quite as majestic as mine was. It's a little bit raggedy, but at the same time...
I wouldn't describe your former mustache as majestic.
I got one picture where it's quite majestic. The one where I'm wearing that tiara.
It's not majestic.
In that picture, that mustache is majestic.
No, it's not.
It only became non-majestic when it started rolling around the side and became more of a molestache instead of a mustache.
It was always a molestache. It was either a molestache or a Hitler stash.
What? It was only a Hitler stash when I finally shaved it off, and I'd never shaved my nose where mustache goes my entire life. When I finally shaved it the first time, of course, I shaved a Hitler stash.
And then you shaved the rest?
Well, I wore the Hitler stash for like 4 hours, and my landlady came in and said it looked like she was about to act like she was offended, and she was about to say something like, what? But she cracked up before she could. And it was great.
All right.
I feel bad that Hitler ruined that. I mean, it used to be the chaplain.
But he ruined a lot of things. Like the swastika was okay before Hitler.
Yeah, now people freak out about it.
Yeah,
even the backwards one.
Well, you know, it's like anyone who can use anything can be misused and demonized. That anything some bad things can also be glorified and made I guess, to appear good.
Yeah,
It's all
aggressive and
marketing.
militaristic Germany, Hitler got rid of that. No one will stand for that anymore.
And the real thing that's bad is what, the swastikas and Hitler mustaches symbolize, not the things themselves, not the symbols, I mean, like, even if Christianity is bad, a cross is just a cross. It's not hurting anybody. It's just a cross.
Well, I believe...
Except for
in
vampires.
Fact, the exact opposite
Except
was
for
true.
vampires.
A cross is hurting
Vampires
somebody
don't like crosses.
unless they're using it on you in the prescribed manner.
Right. Can I do my thing, Dana?
No. So this video is excellent. Most excellent.
It's pretty excellent.
And this is the kind of thing that's up my alley, and I'll leave it at that.
Wow, it was a great commentary. All right.
What else can I say? It's awesome. If you disagree with me, you're not awesome.
All right. So, the Mona Lisa, right?
Some painting, some famous guy did it.
Maybe, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, people like me, we're not so knowledgeable in the ways of the arts. Knowledgeable in the computers, not so much the arts. So, I know the Mona Lisa is all great and important and whatever.
Well, it's really hard to get arts installed and working properly.
Yeah, I know. It freaking conflicts and viruses and whatever. But, so, here's a cool video I found on the YouTube. I might have found it on Dig, I don't remember. And it's basically called Mona Lisa. Why so famous? And this guy explains he puts a picture of the Mona Lisa up there, and he explains to you in as much detail as any common person should know why it's important and why it's awesome. And I guess now after seeing this video, the Mona Lisa is more awesome to me than it was before. And if you ever wanted to know, you could go watch this video. It's like 5 minutes. It won't hurt you. And you get to look at the Mona Lisa, which is nice looking.
Is it just, I haven't watched it yet. Is it just one shot of the Mona Lisa? Does he pan out?
He's moving the camera around and he's like drawing, he's, superimposing things on it to demonstrate things. And
Well, I can just imagine that he's drawing on it like, this one is so famous. Much like the most recent Perry Bible Fellowship.
No, he's superimposing on, an image of the Mona Lisa to demonstrate why it is
superimposed.
And he has other imagery he uses to explain why it's so awesome and important and everything. And
I'll probably watch it before I go to bed tonight.
Yeah, we'll go downstairs and watch it after the show because I want to see it again to, I guess, reinstill some of the ideas in my brain.
That's why I really want to see what that Van Gogh movie that's coming out.
There's a Van Gogh movie?
Or not the Van Gogh movie. The De Goya movie.
I don't know who De Goya is.
You can see how much we know, as Emily just corrected me. But yeah, all I remembered was I saw a preview for a movie that was set a long time ago and involved guns and Spain and art and religion and historical drama, which is also up my alley.
Right.
Almost as much as Sidonian knights and their mustaches.
All right, Netflix cue it is.
I don't know. I kind of want to see that in the theater. Right. So speaking of seeing things in the theater, Google.
Google.
All right. Good night.
All right.
So
we needed some show ideas, and we came up, and
Emily actually, we sat down. We're like, what are we going to talk about this week? Because we're only doing 3 shows this week. Hate to break it to you, but in America, there's this holiday called Eat Until You Feel Sick.
And it's Thursday, so no show Thursday.
No.
Unless you want the Eat Until You Feel Sick show.
You know what you're going to hear? You're going to hear, I wish I hadn't ate so much. I feel sick.
You're going to hear, turkey leg. Oh, turkey leg and football.
I get to watch the Lions lose. I get to watch.
You know what happened on Sunday?
Did the Lions lose?
To the Giants. Oh, man. You suck.
I never said that I'm a fan of the Lions.
It doesn't matter. My city be your city.
I don't root for the Lions. The Lions are nothing more than a Thanksgiving tradition in my family where we watch them wear their old-ass uniforms.
They're actually, in all seriousness, they're actually better this year than they've been in like a zillion years. They're not great. They're not winning the Super Bowl or anything, but they're better than they've been in a long time. So you might see them win on Thanksgiving.
That would ruin a tradition of my family.
I don't know who they're playing. I have to go see.
Doesn't matter.
It does matter.
It doesn't matter. They're not going to win. It's Thanksgiving. I've seen them be up by like 30 and then lose it.
Yeah, it happens, but they might. Anyway.
Wow. Oh, shit. The geeks are talking about football. What are you going to do?
Let's do the actual show here.
Okay, so we were trying to come up with ideas, and the original idea was good, but we spawned that off into like a bunch of shows to do later. But we could just talk about Google. We realized we've never talked about Google straight up in terms of, what it is really, where it really came from, why it's awesome, why all those SEO people can die in a fire, but at the same time, why Google is awesome because they always thwart them.
Mm-hmm. But then I said, hey, why don't we do a show about what it was like before Google, and then people will fully understand why Google is awesome.
Now, we have talked about this often in the past, but I don't think we've done an actual show about it.
So maybe we should.
All right. So,
Oh, by the way, Detroit's is playing Green Bay on Thanksgiving.
yeah.
They're gonna lose.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But they're going to eat like a 13-legged turkey.
Maybe 12:30 on Fox.
Right. So, back in the day, the internet was a collection of, 14 to 16 things. And that was pretty much it.
Well, are you talking about the web or the internet? Because the internet was like a whole bunch of different things.
It's true for both, because originally the internet was a very small number of computers that could talk to each other.
That's true.
And then they added stuff to it. And then there was the web. I mean, I guess we should really talk about what the web is briefly.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people use the web or the World Wide Web to be synonymous with the internet. And that is absolutely not true. The web is just, if nothing else, the easiest, most obvious, most well-known thing that the internet is used for. The web came long after the internet. The web was newfangled for a long time. The web evolved. The web used to not have pictures.
Yep, the internet is a bunch of computers connected to each other on a network, and they can send data to each other in many ways. And you can have all sorts of different methods of sending data. I mean, I could connect from one computer to another computer with SSH. I do it every day. I can connect from one computer to another computer with IRC protocol. I don't do that very often at all.
I could use Gopher.
You could use Gopher.
I did use Gopher.
You could use Telnet. You could use Shoutcast. You can use all sorts of different protocols.
RSH.
Yeah, all sorts of things. And HTTP is just one of those things. However, HTTP, which is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is the web,
which basically will send, usually, HTML, which is an SGML.
Yes, HTML is Hypertext Markup Language. So HTTP is a transfer protocol for the transfer of HTML. So basically, the web is, there are servers, and you go to the server, and with HTTP, there are pretty much three things. There used to be more things that you could do with HTTP, like put, but nowadays all you can really do is get and post. Get says, give me that page. So you go to a web server and you say, get, and the web server sends you, and the web server sends you the HTML. So when you type in google.com, your web browser sends packets to Google that says get, and then Google sends you google.com, the front page in HTML format. And then your browser goes get to get the pictures, and then it loads the pictures, and that's it.
So, and also the only other thing I should really say is that www, the acronym, stands for the World Wide Web. But www.something does not mean you're on the web. That www is the name of the computer that is called www, that is at the rest of that URL.
Yeah, it just so happens that people often name computers with web servers running on them www.
Because it kind of makes sense, don't you think?
Yeah, maybe.
So take that, Godot, who wouldn't listen to me and argued with me on Gmail for a while about that.
And not the Phoenix Wright guy.
No, not the awesome guy.
The juggling
guy who's also awesome, but loses points for arguing with me about an IT issue.
When he's a juggler.
Also, why does he have time to argue with me? I was just some guy on the internet, and yet he just kept responding.
Because he makes his living juggling at once a night. He doesn't do anything all day.
Poor Michael
He has time to bike the Tour de France on his stationary bicycle in his house.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, remember Pendulette used to have a podcast, and it was kind of good.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Anyway.
So forget all that. The web. How do you find stuff on the web? I mean, back in the day, you could go to the bookstore. And this was before I even had access to the internet. This is back when I had Prodigy, but there was an internet that I theoretically could have gotten to, though I didn't know how. You could buy yellow pages of the internet. They were in the bookstore, and they had pretty much every website in the world.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't that many of them. Only so many people had the ability to set up a web server and the knowledge to set up a working web server, get it connected, and keep it running properly.
And you might say, in the world, what about the rest of the world outside of the U.S.? There really was no internet to speak of. At least not like it is today outside of the U.S.
The internet was made in the U.S., and it's still Most of it is in the U.S.
The U.S. invented it.
Now it's spread out.
The U.S. invented it. The U.S. has the majority of its infrastructure. The U.S. has the majority of the control over it, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
No, not really.
But back then, I mean, it was just, there were very few things that weren't just websites in English, and you could go buy a book, and you could search for games, and under games, you'd find like 6 URLs, and they were all there, and they didn't change.
Yep. Because, I mean, people who did set up a web server, I mean, there wasn't that much advanced stuff you could do. You could pretty much set up static pages that didn't change. Not like, you know, you go to Amazon, you can reload the page and it's different because a computer is automatically generating that HTML based on data in a database and other information. They didn't have that technology originally. It was just someone made a web page and put it there. So it was basically like it was basically the same as downloading a Word document and reading it, and that Word document never changed unless someone manually changed it with their hands.
And remember, in the early web, there weren't pictures. There was nothing.
You were lucky if you had colors, let alone pictures.
And of
with
course,
your Netscape 2.0 gold.
I don't know if this is going to turn into a nostalgia fest for blink tags and Java. Remember those early like chat boards that were in a website that just basically were a web page that refreshed every 10 seconds with what everyone had posted, and then crashed.
Yeah, those are good times.
I used to hang out in those things all the time.
GeoCities, all right, but
I had a GeoCities site.
Yeah, but basically,
Mephistopheles Realm. It was a ROM site.
I was in Times Square Castle.
I was in Times Square Dungeon 2004.
I think I was
something.
8716. I don't remember, but anyway, the point is that there were web servers, and you needed to know the URL of the web server. And if the web server had multiple pages, you needed to know the URL of those pages. And there was no way to find this out. And I mean, unless someone told you, or how would you know? How would you know the URL of something? I mean,
so you know how people got around the internet? There's a term that was used in the 90s, and it's pretty much ceased to exist. It is not a thing that people do anymore. It's kind of this archaic terminology. You didn't just use the internet. People used to surf the web, which meant very specifically, you go to a website. Every website had a links page because that's how the internet was. And after, I'm looking at this web page and I'm bored with it. I'm done with it. I read it. What now, internet? Well, I click on links. And it was usually a collection of things that were either related or things that the person who made that web page thought himself or herself were interesting. So I'd go, oh, bunnies, and I'd click on that. And I'd read this page about bunnies for an hour. And then I'd look down and say, a link to a site on military something something. That sounds interesting. Click. And you just go website to website in a line. There were no tabs. You could open multiple windows, but
good luck with that with your 16 megabytes of RAM.
You'd hit about 3 windows before it crashed if your dial-up didn't go first.
Yep. In addition to that, people eventually made web rings. Now, what a web ring was is a
collection of broken links.
Basically, let's say I made a website about video games. I would go and I would find a web ring for video game websites, and I would paste this code on my website. And so on my website, there'd be this giant block of HTML, like this big table, and it would say video game web ring, click here. And basically what it would do is everyone else who joined that web ring would have this web ring thing on their site, and you would click next on the web ring, and it would take you to the next site in the ring.
Yep, next, previous, or random. Or you could look at the list, but the list never worked on any of those stupid things.
Yeah, most of the sites were broken, but you could go around and go to every website of people who had joined this particular web ring. And the idea was that, hey, if our sites are similar, we all put this thing on our site. Anyone who comes to any one of our sites will go to all of our sites by keep clicking next. I put web rings on my old GeoCities site for a while. I never went through a web ring.
I went through web rings all the time, partly because I wanted to find out stuff about anime. So I went on all these anime web rings, and then I download picture galleries.
I didn't do the anime until...
Or I'd find like a MIDI file of the opening theme to Tenchi, and that was hot shit.
Yep. Now, also in this day, eventually there came there was, what was that called? Link Exchange?
Oh, yeah.
Link Exchange was basically like the beginning of banner ads. What you did is you went to Link Exchange and you made a banner in MS Paint or whatever. You uploaded it and you put your URL in there. And then you would put this Link Exchange thing on your site. And whenever anyone visited your site, it would randomly select an image to show in the Link Exchange banner. It would be a random banner. And the ideal was if you allowed a random banner to show up on your site every time someone visited, then your banner would randomly show up on other people's websites. And hopefully someone would click on that random banner and end up at some other websites.
Or they'd clink after the modem died. But
yeah, but basically the point was people were trying to get more links to URLs on the web because it was impossible to find anything any other way.
Now, I do want to point out something. I don't want to go into detail about this. This is obviously a topic for another show, but notice how nothing we've said generates revenue for jack all anyone yet? Not so much talk about ads or anything like that. Look, there
were some ads going on.
Not many, but look, the only thing we're talking about here that was close to an ad was this kind of open, free thing that people mutually use to try to help each other out. No one made money off of that.
I think you could pay the link exchange eventually at one point.
Oh, yeah, well, eventually it all became about money. But much of the web was pretty much just people posting interesting things and linking to other interesting things. There weren't pop-ups yet.
No, not yet. Not yet, anyway.
No one had even thought, what if I made a pop-up
That wasn't
ad?
until like Netscape 3 or 4 that stuff was going on.
Those were dark times because there's no way out.
Yeah.
Pop-unders, pop-overs.
So the next thing that happened was Yahoo came about. And Yahoo was a big deal because Yahoo was one website that you could go to, and they had so many links to other websites, and most of them were good and not broken. It was amazing. And the way Yahoo worked originally was you would submit a website to Yahoo with a description and everything. You had to fill out this form. And people at Yahoo would manually look at that site, decide if it was good enough to be on Yahoo, and if it was, they would add it to Yahoo in the appropriate category. So when you're looking for gaming sites, the gaming area on Yahoo had like 50 links to different gaming websites, and that was a big deal, especially when like new links showed up there. You'd be like, oh man.
So, and the internet started getting bigger. There were more things around. Things started changing, moving. Suddenly, pretty much every link on Yahoo was broken.
Yep.
And new sites appeared far faster than they could keep up. Yahoo became nothing. It just became so useless.
Pretty much. It wasn't, It's like for a time you would use Yahoo, and then after a while you would go there, there'd be nothing new for you at all, and you just like, oh well.
But at the same time, it didn't matter that much because internet culture was different back then. I would have a list of like 20 or 30 sites that I hung out at. Those were the sites that I went back to. I went to websites on purpose. Now I just go to content aggregators.
Yep. All right, so then there was stuff like Alta Vista and WebCrawler.
Yeah, we're going to go really fuzzy about the chronology because you don't care. Pretty much.
Yeah, I'm sure we're saying things chronologically out of order, but that doesn't really matter.
Well, what I'm saying is that there was kind of then this power vacuum where suddenly there's no real, I mean, you could use this Lycos thing, which searched the internet in one way. I think their claim to fame was that we have more pages indexed than anyone else because we did it by
It was all about the number of pages you had, right? Because there were certain numbers of pages on the internet, and the way people were making these search engines, the primitive search engines, was with crawlers. And the crawler would visit one website, then visit every website that website linked to, and so on and so forth, and it would keep track of every website it could see and try to make a giant database of every website there was, so that way, the more sites they had in their search engine, because there weren't so many sites. I mean, there was a lot of sites, thousands upon thousands upon thousands, but there weren't so many that there would be something about everything, So that the idea was that the more sites we have indexed, if you search for something, you're likely to find what you're looking for with our search engine because we have more sites indexed.
However, you couldn't find dick. And the reason was computers weren't that fast back then, and search algorithms weren't all great back then, and no one had done anything really clever. So most search, how does a website that's going to search determine whether or not this site about kittens or this site about kittens is better? The only metric most people could come up with back then was the number of times the word kittens appeared on the website.
And people were doing things like they would say, all right, everyone put these meta tags at the top of your page with the keywords that you want to be known for.
So then other sites would weight those things really highly. Like if I make a video game ROM site, my meta tags were Vigigames, ROMs, illegal, wares.
Yeah, and literally in those days, you could make a website, right? And at the top of the website, you could be like meta space keywords equals video games, 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 etc. like 100 times, and then do /meta.
And then at the bottom of your website, you got a white background. In white text, you have the word video games 1,000,000 times.
Yep, and basically now, almost a bunch of search engines, if someone typed in video games, your site would be on top. And that was how it worked.
And right about then is also when ad sites started really springing up, and there was the whole dark age of advertising on the internet that we could probably do a separate show about.
Probably. Let's not talk about the advertising. We're mostly talking about the searching, right?
And the search engines were largely useless. And
the worst thing about the search engines was that you would search for something, and even if it looked like a good link showed up, link would be broken. It would just be, you click and it would take you nowhere. It'd be 404.
Search engines were not intelligent. If you typed cat and the best cat site in the world had cats in it but never said the word cat, you're not going to find it.
Nope.
And also, you really had to know your logic. A lot of people didn't realize that, this and this or this. You had to really... It was kind of an art and a science to craft a search that would find what you wanted. You couldn't just type what you wanted. You would never find it.
Yeah, the way you searched was a lot like the way you searched on the original CD-ROM encyclopedias. You had to say, I want websites that have cats, not pets, yes, eating. And try to find out, what wild... I don't know.
What?
Maybe if you're trying to find out, what wild cats eat as opposed to what pet cats eat. Something like that.
And of course, in addition to all that, this was right about the era where a good quarter of the time, any link you clicked on was actually pornography, unexpectedly.
Oh, all sorts of crazy porn out there. And it was low-resolution pornography, too.
But porn would just pop up all the time, no matter where you went.
Yeah.
So, whenever I searched, I had a text thing open. And anytime I search, I type my search terms, plus kittens, plus kibble. And then I'd paste minus sex, minus porn, minus XXXX, minus hot girls, minus a million things to try and see a little bit less porn while I search for kittens and kibble.
Yeah, that was how it was.
And all the searches were kind of Eventually, I think Alta Vista was probably the best one.
Not only that, but you'd come up with a search and you would try it at all the different search engines because they'd all give you completely different results, and maybe you'd get lucky.
And even then, you'd have to dig down. You'd pretty much assume that the top 4 pages were useless. And I'd be going to the 80th page of links and Lycos and...
Yeah.
And Alta Vista was pretty much the best of them. And all the, I guess, geeky smart people tended to use Alta Vista. Failing that, they used Yahoo pretty much, or Lycos. The Lycos turned into a porn crawler.
There was Web Crawler. There was Hotspot. Right? There was all kinds of stuff.
And then people made things like, I think Dogpile's the one people knew best, where all it did was submit your search to all the search engines.
Yeah, Dogpile's...
And then it would search through those results.
Yeah, Dogpile's still around, and there were many sites like Dogpile back in the day. So then eventually, right, Yahoo started getting a lot more users. And it was actually, they stopped doing the directory, and they started doing search.
Well, they still had the directory to a degree.
They still had the directory for a while, but they were doing search now, real search. And at first, I think they had the search was powered by the hotspot, but later you would go to you would search on Yahoo because it was pretty much became the best. And you would scroll to the bottom and it would say Yahoo, powered by Google. And I was, you'd see that down there. You'd be like, oh, okay, there's some people named Google that are making Yahoo work. And eventually, people figured it out. They clicked on that word Google down there, and it took them to Google.
And the internet was never the same.
Not ever again. Basically, Google was always the same as it is now, pretty much, in terms of the search engine. It was a text box and a button with no shit in the way.
Pretty much.
You typed in what you wanted, and you got what you wanted.
Anyone who went to Google and searched for something pretty much never used another search engine again.
Yeah. I mean, you typed in what you want, and there it was, the best thing in the world right at the top, every time.
And I think we'll end on that. Think of this as part 1 of a fairly...
You want to talk a little bit about why Google was that way?
I don't know. I kind of want to save that for the show about Google. Just talk about Google for the whole show.
All right.
Why it's good, why it's still good, why it was good then, how awesome it is, how much I like it, how much I have its babies.
How I already had its babies.
We can talk about the history of it, which is also kind of interesting, and why it was called Google and what it was originally called. And
I'll have to study my Wikipedias.
You may. You may.
All right. So, yeah. Anyone who wasn't using the internet back in those days that we were, you missed out on, I guess, stories and nostalgia, but consider yourself lucky and such.
And if anyone complains about Google, there's nothing better in the world.
If anyone's complaining about the state of the internet now, welcome to my 1998 time machine. Let me show you a world. You are taking for granted what you have now, so shut up.
Yeah, you want to see what the internet was like back then? We'll go. There's a lot of other countries.
Go to the Wayback Machine. And go to the Wayback Machine, which lets you look at websites that are old, and go look at Yahoo from the late 90s.
Or even just go to a lot of websites outside of the United States and Europe, and they look a lot like the internet did in 1995.
Yeah, go to MySpace. It looks like 1999.
See, that's the scariest thing. MySpace is like this antediluvian holdback. It's like the internet evolved, and MySpace just went back for the roots of the ancient. It's a trilobite in the sea of modern sharks.
But I like trilobites, but I don't like MySpace.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.